All right, if you are someone who struggles with your putting, specifically starting the ball on line, then this video is perfectly made for you. So let's talk about what makes a good putter. There are three major skills that make a good putter. Number one is your ability to start the ball on line, which is really what this video is about today. Number two would be your green reading, not only the break, but also judging the speed. And then three would be speed control, that you have your ability to hit the putt within a certain amount of distance of the hole. And so we're going to be starting here with this video on the left, and this training aid that I'm using is called the WELLPUTT mat. If you're not using a training aid, I would highly recommend this one. This is my favorite because it's very objective as far as what the stroke should look like, and then its ability to help you solve the problems. I think one of the major problems with people with form work is that they basically do poor strokes that result in hitting the ball on line, but ultimately that's not really how they want their stroke to be. This one also has a lot of guardrails or obstructions that you can put in the way to kind of force the movement that you want. But we're going to start with this video on the left, and this video on the left is with a player who is new to golf, only 12 or 13 years old. It doesn't do a lot of putting, definitely doesn't do any form work. And one of the reasons they don't do a lot of putting is they just don't have a lot of direction. And when they do putt, they don't putt very well. So it's just kind of like, why would I go work on my putting if it's not going great and I don't really know what to do? So my encouragement to this player was really to start doing some form work and then start doing some speed control tasks. So let's kind of play out this putting stroke, and you can kind of get an idea of what we were dealing with. And I recorded probably 4 or 5 like this, and it kind of was the same thing each time. So you can see there's a very inward move on the backswing. I would argue the symmetries, the backswing length is fine. This was about a 7-footer. But the problem with this movement inside is that the putter's going to have to move wildly back to the right to get back to the center of the face, to hit the ball in the center. But the problem with that is it's very easy to go too far right. So you kind of see as we play this out, there's a very big shift back to the right, and then ultimately, which was his main problem, was a heel strike. Very, very big heel strike. And then you're going to see on the follow through, the putter kind of keeps going up the right, and then artificially it kind of comes back to the left. Now, one thing you'll notice is the ball went right through the gate. You can see that. So that's the other problem with doing form work, is just because you're hitting the ball on line doesn't mean you're hitting the putt well, and it doesn't mean that your stroke is good. What would be the problem with hitting in the heel? Well, that usually you would see a pull, because if you hit the heel, that shuts the face. And then secondly, you're going to have very, very poor speed control. You're losing a large percentage of the energy that you're hopefully producing. And that's where, when someone's doing skill work on their speed, if they're hitting it off center, they're going to get wildly different results. So it's hard to kind of develop that skill. So obviously there's some big problems with the stroke here. Now, where did we go? What was the solution to this? And I think we start with the rhythm or the symmetry. Just like when you were learning how to write letters, you can kind of picture this. Like when a kid is writing something, really slowly like this, it gets very jagged or rigid. And the faster that someone writes, like think of cursive, how the finger is moving quickly, generally there's not as much off-plane movement in putting. So I have locked these two videos to kind of move at the same time, and I want you to notice how much quicker the video on the right is. And below my picture here, you can see that I am using an app called SOUNDBRENNER. This app is a metronome. It's really used for music, and it's at 85 beats per minute at 2 beats per measure, which I would say is a little fast, but I wanted this guy leaving, almost hitting the putts too fast. So you're going to see how these videos are starting at the same time. You can already see how much faster this backswing is going. And what you'll notice is the length really isn't that much different, but the speed at which we're getting back to the ball, there's impact on the right, and you can see the one on the left is very, very delayed. So if you're starting out in putting, I think a lot of people try to go really slow to try to control the stroke. But I think the more that you move a little bit quicker, and there's a little bit more of a tick-tock motion to the stroke, you're going to have less off-plane movement and much better speed control and much better symmetry, because it just kind of, the putter I would say is naturally moving. In this video on the left, it's very, very manipulated or manufactured, where the one on the right was really just listening to the metronome and then just responding to it. And so as we go through, you can see he's already to the follow through, and that's just, it's almost like half a second different. So that was number one. So if you've never used a metronome, I highly encourage you to download the SOUNDBRENNER app. It's absolutely free. Again, this will be in my video notes along with a link to the WELLPUTT. Set that to 80 to 85 beats per minute, 2 beats per measure, and that's going to create that tick, tock, motion, or sound that you're looking for that you can copy. People respond really, really well to auditory signals, and so doing something like that should help. Now, if we go back to these strokes, I'm going to actually keep these locked just so you can see. So you can see the first thing I've done on the video is I put a couple T's for centerness of strike. If you're someone who is working on your form and you're not doing this, then again, I think you're kind of wasting your time, because the most important thing in golf, I don't care what skill it is hitting the ball in the center of the face. So you can see those T's are very, very tight. There's not a whole lot of room for someone to miss the face there. Okay. Secondly, I have put some T's here on the follow through just to make sure the motion on the follow through doesn't get too off plane. You can see in the previous video, I'll actually just play it out real fast. He would be running into those T's. You can see those little holes right here. There's a little hole right there. He would be running into that. Okay, so think about when you're driving down the highway, there's cones in the way, there's obstructions, you don't run into them because they're there. It's the same thing. Your brain will always respond to things in the way. It would be very useless for me to tell this player how to move his putter because he's not skilled enough yet. He hasn't hit enough putts, he hasn't worked on his form enough, and so telling him to trace these lines or to do go back to the second club head and follow through to the second club head more down the line. Sure, that's what I want this stroke to look like, but me telling him that is somewhat of a waste of time. Just trust me on that. I've done this for long enough that people don't do very well when you just give them instructions. And so let's go back to the video on the right. And so you can see here, I have this giant box. You do not need to be using this. This is really just what I store my equipment in. The reason I didn't put T's was because it didn't go back far enough. I really needed something here and here because his stroke was somewhat long. You know, when I put the T's there, he kind of went around them. So people are very adaptable. So he was missing the T's while still coming too far inside. So I put this box in the way, and I really trained him to feel like he was going really far outside in the backswing. So when we look at that right there, earlier I said, is it okay if the putter goes a little bit offline? Of course it is. This is totally fine. If you look at the difference in that, though, it's probably an inch of difference. So now as he goes down, on the downswing, there's not going to be that much off-plane movement as long as he doesn't hit the heel. And that was definitely the miss when he was. I mean, look how on the line that is. Again, this is someone who's been playing golf for a very short amount of time. And I would say relative to like a PGA Tour player, if I were to video that stroke in a PGA Tour player, the one on the right really would not look that different. And that is the key to putting form and to creating an environment, is that you really should be able to have a world-class stroke like this. I mean, I would say this is very, very aesthetically pleasing, which will lead to the ball coming off much, much straighter, much more consistently. If you don't have that, then you're not practicing the right way. It really doesn't take some superb putting coach to find this. So when do you know that your stroke is starting to get really, really good? I would say when you can roll the ball through that gate, which if we were just to kind of go back and let's look at that ball on the left, there is almost no room for that ball to roll through. If you can roll the ball through there 8 or 9 out of 10 times, so that's 80 or 90%, that's really, really good. Then you can kind of know that you can leave the mat and start doing some of your drills. But I would argue going and doing drills when your stroke is very bad or you're hitting it off center is kind of a waste of time. Is there some value? I'm sure there's some value, but why would you not want to be doing those drills with a much better stroke with center strikes and you're hitting it off online versus, I'm heeling it, I'm pushing it, I'm pulling it. The ball is going in, but it's kind of like with your driver. If you're hitting it that bad, that's not going to last over 18 or 36 holes. So, getting your form in check before doing those drills, I would say, is very, very important. So if you're not doing any form, I highly encourage you. This is my number one. If you have something different, that's totally fine. Just make sure that you're hitting the center of the face, you're starting the ball in line, and then there's some semblance of form work with the shape of the stroke, not getting too far in, and the symmetry looks pretty good. Hope this video was helpful. Again, those things will be listed in my video notes. Please drop a comment. Please subscribe if you haven't, and good luck the next time you get to work on your putting.